All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, but before I let our visiting artist have the floor, I do want to offer some, well, I just want to I'll let you guys know some announcements first of all. I know I sent out a weekend reminder over the weekend that was huge because we have such a weird schedule for this week, and I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. So, of course, today we are meeting, which we usually don't. Usually it's a virtual asynchronous day, but we had to switch it up a little bit because this is a time that worked well for Ben and for us too, because this is the last week of classes, you guys. We made it. We're there. We're almost to the end. But this is also a big day because the beloved comics are due today. So if you haven't already sent them to me, I've gotten a few through email. And I think there's one that's been left in my box on the door. If you haven't done that, please do that by 5 o'clock tonight. I've already started putting some on our website. So I'm going to show you guys our website tomorrow night at the big 2-class meeting. So that's the other thing I want to let you guys know, that we do have a special class meeting tomorrow night, 7 o'clock to 8:30, and we're bringing in the 2 classes together. I see a question in chat. Excuse me for a minute, from Anna Grace. You have to submit online if you drop them off at your box. Yeah, I think that's going to make it easier for me to grade if you go ahead and and the pictures can just be snapshots from your phone. But if you can go ahead and just pop them into Moodle, and then the grades will be automatically put in there too, so that would make it a lot easier, along with putting them in my mailbox. So yeah, tomorrow night we have this extra special class where we're going to practice our presentation. I do need you guys to be there. It's really important that we're all there together so that we can actually formulate a plan and know what we're going to be doing. So let me know, maybe hang out after class today and let me know if you can't make it and why. And we'll figure out how to make sure you know what's going on Thursday when we actually give our presentation. So because we're having class tomorrow night, there's going to be no class on Wednesday. Nothing new is going to be posted. You guys use this time to catch up and do whatever you need to do. I know you have a lot going on this week. And Thursday is when we have our Cornerstone Cafe presentation. We are going to be the second session. There are 2 sessions happening that night. And there is a sign-up sheet for the second sessions. I just sent this message out in Moodle like about an hour ago. So if you haven't checked your emails, check, because there are 3 sessions that you can sign up for. They're trying to limit the number of people that can be in each session just to make it a little more manageable. So read over those little synopses that tells you what the sessions are about. Pick the one that you think is most interesting and then just respond and let me know which one you're interested in. I'm going to put your name on the sign-up sheet. And then you'll get a link for how to get into that session. It's all going to be online. And then one last thing that was in the memo over the weekend is the analysis paper. I just feel like there's too much going on right now. I don't want us to worry about it right now. And I'm a little behind too, so I haven't had a chance to look over your drafts. So I'm going to work on that this week. I'll get it back to you by the end of this week, hopefully earlier, but then you have until our exam time to actually rewrite it after your draft to turn it in again. Does that sound good? Yeah, okay. There's not going to be an actual, I think this has come up a couple times, but we're not having an actual like test exam. There's going to be analysis paper, and then I'm going to talk to you guys later on about a civic identity reflection. So that essay and this paper are basically going to count as your final exam. There will be no other test that you need to study for. Are there any questions from any of you guys about those assignments, beloved comic? I think I saw something else pop up in the chat. I'm going to pull that up real quick. Should each person individually send in the pages they did, or should we have one person drop off the master copy? I don't need the original master copy. I just need the 4 photocopies, and one person could just send in, yeah, the one. Just send in the 4 copies. I'm just realizing, are you talking about Moodle? Are you talking about submitting on Moodle?
Yeah, I was wondering if like everybody in the group should turn in their own pages onto Moodle, or if just the one person should turn in the whole thing.
You know what? I think each group approach their zines in a different way. If you have specific pages that are all yours, go ahead and just turn in those. But I think there are some groups where they collaborated, writers and artists together. So you would want to submit all the pages that you worked on, but also remember to put in the comments what you did. So in some pages, some cases, you might send in the whole comic and then just write in the comment section what parts were yours. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
Okay, as long as I have the images that I need to put on our website, so people who are visiting can read the whole zine. You can just have one person send in those sort of best copies, the scanned in images. That'll be fine. Any other questions? All right, if we're all good, then what I would like to do is, again, welcome everybody in for this special class. We don't usually meet on Mondays, but we are today because I am so pleased to welcome Ben Blount as our visiting artist. And welcome to those of you who are not in our class who are joining today as well. Ben lives in Detroit, where he's an artist, designer, and letterpress printer. And with this being our last week of classes, we're kind of thinking a lot about final projects and preparing for our presentations later this week, but we're also going into a time of reflection. So we're going to look back over the work that we've done this semester and how the work that we do can impact our communities that we live in. So this is why, for me, this is such a great time for Ben to come speak with us, not only in his craftsmanship and professionalism in his work that he does, but also the role that he plays as an impactful artist in his community. So if you guys could please join me with our golf applause. I just found out this is called golf applause when we silently applause. Ben Blount.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you all. I'll be sharing my screen and kind of talking over some slides for the first part of the talk. Let's see, present now. Render. Let's see. Does that work?
Yeah, we're seeing your page.
Oh, I can't see you guys at all.
Oh, sorry. Yes, this is a Google Meet thing. You can't see us, but we can still see you, and we can see the page you're sharing.
Okay, I'll just get started then. So, hello, my name is Ben Blount. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the work that I do, why I do it, show you some examples of the stuff I've been doing recently. I'm going to focus on stuff I've been doing since the pandemic, and because a lot of that has to do with community and connecting with people since we've been separate for so long. And then we'll have time at the end to ask questions and just have a conversation. That sounds good?
Sounds great.
So, as Jessica said, I was born and raised in Detroit. Are you guys from all over the country, or are you most from North Carolina? Is anyone from the Midwest?
Hey, I'm from Flint.
Okay. I love it. So growing up in Detroit, I found as I've left Detroit has kind of influenced the work that I do, partly because Detroit is the largest Black city in the country. So after I left Detroit, I realized that most people didn't grow up in that way, even most Black people. So even Chicago, well, I'm in Evanston, just north of Chicago, but if you think of Chicago as a big city with a large Black population, it's still pretty segregated. So the south side of the city, the west side of the city is majority Black, but it's still within the larger Chicago, there's probably a 30% Black population. While in Detroit, kind of everyone was Black. So the neighborhood, almost everyone that went to my school was Black, middle school and high school, but even the mayor was Black, and all the lawyers and the judges and your dentist was Black. And so having that kind of experience, I think I look at race and interact and talk about race differently than most people. And so that has definitely kind of influenced and found its way into my work. Music was also a big influence on my work. I grew up during the kind of the golden age of hip hop music. So in the mid to late 80s, it was groups like Public Enemy and De La Soul, and it was very focused on the words and what they were saying. It was kind of a revolution music for a while. And so I think my love of language and working with words comes from that lyrical, that wordplay, and trying to say something with language. So I went to school in St. Louis for undergrad and studied graphic design, got my BFA in graphic design. And then for graduate school, that was in Chicago, and I got a master's in book and paper art. So I learned how to letterpress print, make books, and make paper. So I was working full-time while I was in grad school, graduated from school, got this degree, and then just kind of stopped making stuff. I had like a big pause on my art making or object making. I had a full-time job at the time, had a new family, had just had a daughter, and so life was pretty busy. I didn't go to school specifically to like become an artist or to become a teacher. I just wanted to learn how to print. I wanted to know how to use those skills to make things. And so once I acquired that, I kind of just went back to kind of regular life and didn't make anything for several years. Looking back now, I realize a lot of that had to do with fear, being scared to put my work out there, worried if it was important enough to be seen by people and even just to spend the time on. So just like everybody, people are working, they've got busy lives, and to have to carve out time to do something like that, I wasn't sure that what I was doing was important enough to take time away from all the other things in my life. And I bring that up because I think that idea of fear, of pursuing a passion or sharing work is something that everyone comes across sometime in their lives, and everybody's kind of dealing with it. Even people that that are doing well and really successful, they have those kind of fears too in the background. And so only in the last, I'd say 4 years have I really started putting real effort and concentration and time into my work. So we'll fast forward a little bit. So eventually I did get back to printing. I started buying equipment, got some wood type. And so this is my first studio that was in the basement of my apartment building in my storage unit. So you can see it was a little dark down there, but I was kind of set up with a little tabletop press, and that's where I first started. And then in the last 2 years, I moved to this space. So this is
hang on
outside of, oh.
Sorry to interrupt, Ben. All I can see is the hello screen.
Are you serious?
Yeah, there's a
the whole time?
Screen. Yes, sorry. Were you showing images the whole time?
I was. That's so funny.
Oh, is anybody else seeing something else?
Is it moving now?
No, we are just seeing the blue hello screen.
Huh.
Oh, it says only black, but that could be my internet.
Jessica, we're not getting the screen.
It says you're presenting to everyone. Let me stop presenting.
Okay. When you select present now, it asks for like which screen, right?
Yeah, so your entire screen or a window.
Yeah. Did you choose entire screen?
I chose window.
Try entire screen,
Sure.
and then we'll just see what your screen looks like. That's what I end up using a lot.
Entire screen. Allow. And if I change screens, can you see a speech bubble now?
Yes. Yeah. A white speech bubble on. Oh, there is that Detroit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Detroit, being black in Detroit, hip hop, St. Louis above, Chicago below. Paul's done everything. My first studio, my current studio. Is it working?
Yeah, we're seeing it. Thanks for showing those that we missed.
Sure. Okay, so this is the outside of my studio, current studio where I am now. So I wanted to get out of the basement. So this is a storefront studio in kind of a neighborhood in Evanston. And I'm going to try and play a video of a little tour of the studio so you can get an idea of where I am. It's a little bit of context. So let's see. Do you see flowers?
Yep, I'm seeing flowers. I think you're starting the video.
All right, cool. So this is down the street from my studio. So on the left-hand side, there are a bunch of studios, but it's a part of a neighborhood. It's not really a residential street. So if I look across the street, there's houses. So it's a real kind of neighborhood community. But this person 2 doors down makes doll houses. My next door neighbor, they share a studio. One of them is a painter. The other one is a traditional printmaker. And so that second blue door is mine, 1123 Florence. So the studio is called Make. And if you're walking by, this is what you'd see. When I first moved, and see that honey bucket on the right, I think that's pretty funny. When I first moved here, I put a little bit of a kind of manifesto outside of my window because I wasn't spending a lot of time in the studio. I wanted people to know what was going to go on in there. So we'll take a quick peek inside and I'll give you a little tour. These are a couple of welcome signs from other printer friends of mine. So just to let you know, when I made this video, I did not clean up the studio. So you're getting a behind the scenes. This is as messy as it was when I filmed this video. I had just done a show, so I had a bunch of prints kind of laying out, but this is the space. Couch for people to hang out if they want to come visit. That's where I sit 9 to 5. I work as in advertising as an art director during the day. I just bought this cool paper cutter that's now put together, but I had just gotten it, so it was in pieces on the floor. This is some of my work, and you'll see some of this in the slide presentation later. Going on the other side of the table, this is the first press that I had in the basement. It's a sign press, like a store back in the day might have this in the back of their shop and they could use to print signs. And this is the press that I use most of the time. It's a Vandercook 4 proofing press. So these presses were made in Chicago, and mine was made in 1947. It's a vote poster I was working on. And then behind me against the wall are cabinets of all my type. So these first 2 cabinets, the first one is my wood type. These other 3, well, that was some wood type a friend actually gave me a few weeks ago. These other cabinets are all metal type. That's kind of bigger types. You see 72 point, 84 point, and this is the smaller point, like the 12 point to 14 point stuff that I use a lot less frequently. Just to give you a peek inside of the drawers. So I have a fair amount of type, but a lot of it is this kind of Gothic at different sizes, different weights. Got that kind of brush script. A little bit bigger type. And this is the biggest type that I have. There's my handmade make sign. And then behind me are posters from a bunch of friends of mine. So it's a kind of an inspiration wall for me. And when people come to the studio, they can kind of see what kind of things people do with letterpress. There's a print from Amos Kennedy. There's also one of those behind Jessica, a print from Amos. That's Brad Vetter, Jen Farrell, Stephanie Carpenter in Wisconsin, Bill Moran, also in Wisconsin. and that's Rick Griffith in Colorado, and Aaron Kohick on the right. The glow mica print in the fluorescent, and that's Amos Kennedy again. All right. So I'll invite you virtually into my studio, and I'll show you some of the work that I've been doing. So the first piece that I did after the pandemic hit and everyone was kind of sent home for work was inspired by the work, the signs that you'd see in Italy. If you remember, they got hit a few weeks before us, and we were kind of watching to see what was happening with them before it got here. And they were hanging these signs outside of their doors saying that everything will be all right. Lots of rainbows and this language in doorways and businesses. And I was inspired by that and thought, hey, I have a print shop. I could make some signs as well. And thought about what would make sense for me, or what was I thinking during this time. So I did this series of letterpress posters. The first thought was keep your distance, because everything was really scary. We didn't know how contagious this was. It was just really nervous that 6 feet was like very important. And so the first one I thought of was keep your distance. And thinking that we're going to be home a lot and maybe home with people we're not used to being stuck at home with so much, I thought, this is a time to think about it as a way to enjoy your family. Have love your neighbor and thank your helpers were some signs that I saw around in our neighborhood that I wanted to do as well. But the one that really resonates for me is share your skills. Just thinking like, this could be a really frustrating time. We could all feel a little bit helpless. And what is it that you could do to contribute or to help? There are people in our community that were who couldn't get it, running errands for people. Maybe you're making posters or some kind of artwork to inform people or uplift people. Just thinking about ways that people can contribute in a time of kind of stress. And at the bottom of all of these posters was the phrase, "We are all connected." So as I said, I work as an art director, so kind of a regular 9-to-5 job. And so I've been working from the studio during the pandemic. And so this is my view from behind my desk. I've got a folding table and a folding chair. I need to get a new chair because my back is kind of killing me at this point. But this is a view from my laptop, and looking out the window, it's a different perspective. So instead of seeing my coworkers every day, instead of going into the kitchen and fixing lunch together, I would see people walking by, walking their dogs, exercising, and people I've never seen before, because usually I'm at work downtown in Chicago and not at my studio. So these are a whole bunch of people that live right near me or right near my studio that I'd never seen before. Just thinking about, oh, these people are my neighbors too. And they're wearing their masks to keep me safe. I'm wearing my mask. And when we cross each other on the street, someone might go in the street so that we can keep our distance, and that we really are connecting, and we really do have to kind of be in community with each other, and we can really see how really important that is. So it made me think differently about what it is to be a neighbor. So I made this print. It says, "We will get through this together. After all, we're neighbors." And at the bottom it says, "Print it with love from your neighbor at 1120." I wanted to share this with my neighbors. So I made about 250 copies of this print and then walked the block around out to community. Maybe half a mile here. And so I did the same thing by my house. I took the print and walked like 4 blocks up and passed them out to my neighbors on that side, crossed the street, and passed them out 4 blocks back. And so I didn't ring doorbells or, I just dropped it off to people. I put it, just handed it to them as a gift. And what was nice is people started putting them up in their windows and doors. So now when you walk around my studio or around my house, you see people's window. And again, this isn't what I asked for, but it was just a way to show like other neighbors know that, yeah, we are neighbors. We'll get through this together. And through this, I'm able to meet a bunch more. People are saying hello. People are being more friendly in a different way. It's yeah, cool to see that even though we have to be kind of separate from each other, there's a way to show that we are indeed together. So Black Lives Matter, as we know, has kind of grown in prominence and understanding in the last few months. Lots of protests and actions around Black Lives Matter. But when Black Lives Matter first was introduced a few years ago, it was a lot more of a controversial statement. There's the idea that people were kind of adding extra words like only Black Lives Matter and seeing it as somehow dismissive of another group of people. And that was really kind of bothering me, and people I thought were kind of subverting the message. And so I designed this t-shirt. I don't know if you guys seen the t-shirts with a bunch of ampersands, all Helvetica, and there's ampersands. I think the first one was for the Beatles. It was like John and Paul and George and Ringo, and it became kind of a meme. And people do these lists with ampersands and Helvetica. So I took that idea from that shirt and went to add some other words to Black Lives Matter to add a different context to it. This shirt said Black lives love and strive and hope and struggle and matter. So it's kind of, the idea for me is kind of humanizing the idea. It says that Black lives are just like any other lives. Black people love and strive and hope and struggle like anyone else. It's not a message to denigrate anyone else. It's just a message focusing on Black lives, because those are the lives that are in danger now. And so I made a bunch of these shirts. Just had like a big box of them in my living room and would sell them around Evanston. But as Black Lives Matter got to be our movement, by us and where them it actually resonating with the statement and where I also made a poster with this message on it, and a friend of mine made these posters for me initially just to give away, and I would give them to students when I would go to schools and talk. And someone asked me, could they buy one? And I was thinking, well, that wasn't really the point, but maybe it's a way to raise some money. And so I letterpress printed the word solidarity and support on the bottom of them and started selling them on my website just to raise money for Black Lives Matter. And it's the way I think, so even if people are kind of supporting Black Lives Matter because it's becoming kind of more popular to do, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to go and do a big action or even go protest. And so I've thought of this as a way for people to like tip their toe into the water and show solidarity by putting the sign up, even if it's not somewhere visible, they just have it up in their own home. And by donating the money, they're supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. So I got a lot of those posters kind of out in the world, and I liked that message, but it was, you know, seeing the more violence and seeing the amount of people protesting, I just felt like I wanted to say something a little bit more direct and less nuanced. And so I wanted to make a poster that said, stop killing Black people. So as a little peek into my process, I typically would type, and as I work on the computer, I like to be hands-on. So sometimes I will just take the type out, start laying it out and figuring out the layout on the page. So without sketching it, just figuring it out with the actual type. And so I wanted to have this big, bold message, stop killing Black people. And what I figured out was the word killing wouldn't really fit on the page. So I had this type, and my next type smaller was too small. It would have been too small on the page. So I wanted to keep that big, bold message. So I started combining the bigger type with the smaller type. So you can see KILL is big and the ING is smaller. So I started kind of integrating those two together. And, you know, as a designer, so it doesn't look like a mistake, I had to do it more than once. So I started to figure out where the small letters could fit in other words. So this is me setting up the first run, leaving holes for the smaller type that would come in after. So you can see that's the first run, and then me just making sure the placement's correct for type. C and ing are just the letter I turned sides. So I did that through a few posters and did this series for Juneteenth last year, Stop Killing Black People, Knees Off Our Necks, and Juneteenth. If you remember, Juneteenth became kind of a more known holiday this year. It was so the enslaved Africans in Texas didn't get the message about the Emancipation Proclamation until about 2.5 years later. And so that resonated with me and made me think about what was going on in the country now, and the idea that looking at like police violence against Black people, maybe people still haven't gotten the message that Black people are indeed free and should be treated equally. And it kind of was analogous to a delayed message getting through in 1865. And so I put "We Can No Longer Wait" on all 3 posters. One of the more recent things I did with a few printer friends of mine, well, you know, the election was coming up. It's a big, important election, and we thought we could see how print was being used and activated all over the country. So people are making signs. You're seeing print signs and protests on people's Facebook and Instagram pages. There's lots of signs and messages. And so seeing how the power of print could be really a positive thing right now, we decided to try to get a bunch of other letterpress printers together and make some posters to get people to participate in the election. So the ACPA is the Amalgamated Colored Printers Association. It's just a loose association of printers, just all inclusive, saying that everyone is able to be a part of the printing. And so we asked a bunch of printer friends to send us 50 letterpress printed vote posters, and then we put them all together on a site and sold them for $11.03, so 1103, which was the date of the election, to get the posters out around the country. And then we used some of the proceeds to send the posters to swing states so that we can give them away where they'd be of most use. So if you look on the website, there's dozens of vote posters, letterpress print posters, for 1103. Some of them are sold out now, but there's still some up there. We'd ship the real posters out to you, and there's also files you could download to, you know, email to people or put on your Instagram. And again, this is an example of people coming together to interact with the community through print. So these are the 2 posters that I made for the project. That one on the left, you could see on the video tour, that vote was locked up in the bed of the press. I thought of like a megaphone or someone shouting the words "vote." That was the idea behind the one on the left. And then the one on the right was just saying, you know, it was sitting in your ballot was really important, understanding that there are going to be really long lines. There were obstacles for some people in some states to vote, and just making sure that people voted by any means necessary. I know you guys were working with zines, and so I wanted to share this project with you called the Quarantine Public Library. 2 friends of mine did this together. I'm not sure if you are familiar with a one-page book. There's a book or a zine that you can make with 1 sheet of paper folded down. And the friends had this idea of making a collection or a library of sorts of one-page books made by artists. So the idea is that the artist would make a one-page book. On a page was one side of one 8.5 to 11 sheet of paper, upload it to the site so that anyone could go to this website, to the library, download and print this page and fold it and make it into a book. So here is a shot of some posters, on some books on the website. You can organize it by genre, by artist, and it's a really cool collection of art, of book art, that's really affordable and accessible to all people. I wanted to stop presenting really quick and show you. I printed some out. Whoops. Trying to make it, you guys, a little bit bigger. So you can see me, right? Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen these kind of books before, but so they're one page, all the contents on one side, and they fold down into an 8-page book.
Yeah, those are, we
Okay. Yeah, so this was my contribution to that. It's a series of haiku for Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. So I've got like the larger image. People protesting. And then when you fold it down, so the book is called On the Count of Three. 1, A is for Ahmaud. E is Black boy brutalized, chased, dead, ever free. 2, when Black Lives Matter, Breonna through the night and wakes up refreshed. 3, just short of lynching, just short of 9 minutes, still no justice for George. And the last page, on the count of 3, we watched, unblinkingly saw, we were made ready. So this is something you guys can check out. So there's ones that are a little less heavy than that. This one is like purely illustrative, blowing off steam. A series of kind of mantras, all text, but kind of graphic, illustrative text. There you go. So that's what I've been working on the last few months.
Well, thank you. And thank you for showing us around your neighborhood and your studio. I want to open up the floor to anyone who has a question for you. Why don't you guys, I know we have the chat screen up, but why don't you guys go ahead and unmute and just ask?
Are people still able to visit your studio right now?
Are people able to? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. They are. It's just me in here, and it's big enough. So when during the summer, I was selling a lot of the Black Lives Matter shirts, and people were coming by to pick them up. And so, yeah, people just kind of come by, or they'll knock, and then I'll just put my mask on, and we could talk or have some kind of interaction. And actually, at one point, I was kind of selling a lot of things out of the studio, and again, I couldn't really keep people in, and so I had a couple of friends in the studio with me, working and helping me like pull everything together. We were kind of masked and spread out in stations around the studio. But because who even now.
I'm sorry, Ben, we missed that last sentence. Can you repeat your what you just said?
Oh yeah, I was saying, so even now, because it's basically just me and him now, and everyone uses a mask. Doing that.
I think that the connection is just a little bit glitchy now, so we can hear you kind of coming in and out. But we heard that you were saying you had a few friends come in and help you out and wearing masks. And I have a kind of a follow-up question to that one. Is this a space where you invite other people to come and work? As in, can they come in to set type and print?
Can you say that again? You're going in and out. I might.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think our connection is a little bit off right now.
It might be me. I was thinking, if it keeps happening, I can move. Like, my wife's studio is 2 doors down, so I could run in there if it's. I think it might be me. It's working now, right?
It's working all right. It's working better now. Yeah, yeah. And sometimes just closing some screens, like that screen you were just showing us, maybe closing that down helps my computer run better. But I had a follow-up question to Haley's. I was just wondering about your space. When people come into your space, do you invite people to come and work? As in, are they able to set type and print?
I haven't done that yet. Asking, but I only have, well, I guess I have 2 presses and not a lot of typing. I was just worried about how to share resources and give people a good experience. And so I haven't yet, but I've thought about doing maybe 1-on-1 or 2-on-1, either classes or workshops, or maybe I've thought recently about maybe having an intern of some kind, like someone comes in to kind of help around the shop in exchange for access to the press.
That's good to know. That was going to be one of my questions too, because students are always interested in finding internships.
Yeah. I'm going to move.
Okay.
I'm going to move real quick to see if that will improve things.
All right.
It should take me just a minute. I might go out for a second, but. All right. Here we go. We're traveling.
While we wait for Ben to set up in the new space, I just wanted to let you guys know that we have letterpress equipment and a letterpress studio in the Holden studio too, against the far wall. We as a class haven't really been in that space to use it, and there is not a class in letterpress being offered this year because of the social distancing, but I hope to be able to offer a letterpress class starting in fall of 2021. So if you're interested in setting type and making posters, and we also make books in that class too. So if that's something that you're interested in, we'll be doing some similar things like class combining text with images too. And yeah, if you find that interesting, look for it. It's letterpress and the art of the book. Hi, you're back.
Okay. This should be better. She has much better internet than I do.
Clearer. Did anybody else have a question for Ben? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Martin here. You're an art director. What does that mean, and what are you doing? And the things that you sell, like your shirts, are those done on your letterset press, or you're printing them some other way?
So I work at an advertising agency. So the art director. So usually we work in pairs. So there's, an art director and a copywriter. And so the copywriter kind of writes the words, and we work together to come up with the idea for the ad or for the commercial or whatever it is. And then I will do the design. So I'll pick all the typography. If it's a photograph, I'll either find a stock image or go hire a photographer to have it shot. If there's an illustration, I'll hire the illustrator. So I put it together. The copywriter writes the words, but we work as a team. So I'm doing, brochures and apps and trade booth, things like that. And that's all on the computer and printed, digitally. And then all the posters and stuff in the studio is all letterpress printed from wood type, kind of by hand on that Vandercook 1x1. The t-shirts, I don't do screen printing, so I had those printed from someone. I designed them and had someone else print them, but everything else I'm printing myself on the Vandercook.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up to that question?
Definitely.
About the about your job. So now you're working. I'm taking it you left the office because of the pandemic, and you're in your print shop all day working. How is that different from working, in the advertising office?
It's nice because before I would get on a train and my commute was about 50 minutes to go downtown Chicago and then work in the office. And so now I'm able to be in the studio a lot more. Before I was only in the studio kind of after work. So I come home from work, spend time with my family, have dinner, and then come back to the studio at like 11 at night and work from like 11 to 1 or something like that. And then on Saturdays, I come to the studio. And so now I'm at the studio a lot more instead of commuting. I go to the studio early and print before work. And then like if work ends at 5, I can jump on and do some work, for an hour or so and still be right close to home. And the other difference is, at the ad agency, we're in an office building. And so I'm up in my, kind of cubicle. And if work is busy, I could not look out a window almost all day. Like, I don't know what the weather is, gets too busy, eat lunch at your desk, don't go outside. With here, I'm constantly looking outdoors. There's people waving when they walk by with their dogs. Kids come say hi at the window. It's more light filled. And so, yeah, I do miss being at the office for the camaraderie and the collaboration, but it's nice being in the studio because it's a lot brighter and I still get to interact with people in some way. So it's nice.
Thinking about letter set printing, it seems to be having a bit of a heyday, and it seems a little odd because it's such a old, mechanical process. What do you think is the attraction to it, and where do you think it's headed?
I think it's probably a reaction to all the technology. So everyone's in front of screens and everything's digital. So as a reaction to that, people are going to the more kind of handmade, hands-on approach to doing things. The focus on type and typography is really interesting to designers, and so they're getting into letterpress and they're buying the equipment, and it's getting more expensive because it's still pretty rare. I think it's just, a balance. And I've found even at work, we propose ideas that are very, high tech for these trade shows with holograms and all these cool touchscreen things. And I found that by proposing ideas that are more analog and more hands-on is a way to stand out, because everything else is very high tech. And if you do something where, you come in here and you push this thing, or you actually manipulate this thing, it kind of, for me, it kind of harkens back to, everyone has learned to read through, a book. Even kids now that are on iPads a lot, they still get physical books and still manipulate and turn pages. And so I think that kind of hands-on touching paper and reading words that way is still resonant for everybody.
Ben, I have a question about the Amalgamated Color Printers Association. Is that what it's called? I remember when I first met Amos, he inducted me as and he looked at me, he said, as a printer of some color. And we just laughed about it. And he was like, looking for his tribe, I think.
Uh-huh.
been thinking about this a lot in the school that I went to and the school now where I teach, in two schools, undergrad and graduate, the school now where I teach. There's a tendency for people of color to take art classes, but not major in art, not think of art as a career choice. And I'm wondering, what do you suggest that we would do to encourage more people of color to go into the arts?
That's a good question. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely something to being the only one. Like I've been the only one in many spaces, and so even in our program at undergrad, I don't know if it probably wasn't purposeful, but like there was one black fine arts major every year. So I was the one for my year. There was one above me and one below me, and so there's something to consciously choosing to be the only one in a classroom or kind of any kind of space, and not seeing a lot of people, reflecting that activity to you and deciding to do that anyway. I think maybe the kind of shows that you have, the kind of stuff that's up in your studio, is it reflective of lots of different cultures and viewpoints? So someone could come in your studio, look around and see something that might resonate with them in a different way. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not really sure, but I think, yeah, maybe, yeah, a lot of times people don't feel welcome in spaces for one way or another, and trying to figure out how to reach out or actively search for, are there other Black organizations on campus that you can give them a tour of the letterpress studio? And is there an we had an association of Black students on my campus at WashU. Do you invite them specifically and talk about the power of print? Are there messages, things that they would like to talk about? Are there posters that they would like to put up and show them that your print shop is a resource for them? You might have to, actively seek those people out.
That is a great idea. Yeah, thank you.
You guys are so quiet. Serena's smiling, but she's not saying anything. Haley's too. She's over there laughing. She's not saying anything.
That's the problem with asking everyone to mute, and then it's just so hard to get them to unmute again.
I got you. And I didn't mean to call you out. I'm sorry. You're the two in the middle of my screen, so.
This is more of just a personal curiosity question.
Sure.
Have you ever been to a zine fest? I mean, now it's hard, but.
Was that me? I think she froze. Or was that me?
Oh no. I was just asking if you've ever been to a zine festival.
Oh, okay, thanks. I've been to one. I did Chicago Zine Fest one year, and it was amazing. I'd never been to one. And what I did was I used it as a way to do some quick ideas and make almost prototypes. So I don't even know if I had any letterpress stuff. I did a bunch of things and photocopied them, like really kind of cheaply, and got responses from people. And some of those ideas I turned into like more full like letterpress projects. And it was a way to like quickly get some ideas as a prototype, get some feedback, and as kind of as a first round to ideas. So I've been the Chicago Zine Fest is amazing. It was like on 2 or 3 floors, dozens and dozens of people, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. Yeah, I think zines are awesome.
They're a lot of fun, and your work definitely reminds me of a lot of things that I see there. So.
Yeah. Speaking of Zine Fest, I do want to mention, Haley, you just mentioned earlier that you live in Virginia. I think Richmond has a big Zine Fest. Richmond Zine Fest and artist book fairs.
I used to go to that every year.
Oh.
It was very fun. I missed it.
Oh, nice.
Hopefully the Zine Fest will come back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such like a like a low barrier for entry. Like it doesn't have to be super fancy or super finished. And like, yeah, I like it because anybody can do it. Like anybody can make a zine. Anybody can bring whatever. People trade stuff. The community is really cool. I mean, I really loved it.
Anyone else last questions or comments for Ben?
I have a sort of technical question. I was just wondering, from your own experience working with your printing press, have you found that it's very difficult to like tailor it to your own needs? Like you use a lot of typeface, but have you found that it's very difficult to make like if you wanted to make your own blocks and make more visually inclined prints, would that be impossible, or is that something?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. And that's kind of the reason why I had that wall of inspiration. There's a lot of people who are using laser cutters and 3D printing right now to create imagery and blocks to print things. One thing I've been doing is trying to make my print process as not as different, but very different from my advertising stuff. And so, you know, on the computer, I use the Adobe Creative Suite, and I have access to thousands and thousands of fonts. And so when I print with letterpress, I restrict myself to just the type that I have. So if I try to just make it work with what I have, so I'm not interested in like printing, you know, like carving new blocks too much. I just try to be creative within those constructs. Like that poster I showed you, like I wanted to say that, and the type wasn't fitting, and so I had to be creative and come up with a solution. And so that's not something I sketched out. That's not some solution I would have probably figured out if I wasn't solving a problem. And so I'm purposely working with limited resources to try to be creative with those resources. But yeah, there's people, the guy I mentioned, Brad Vetter in Louisville, he does lots of laser cutting to make plates. You know, basically it works on a height. So if anything that is, we call it type high. Oh, there's my hands. So it's 0.98 inches high, it's type high. So anything in the press that's that high can print. So the type, all the big type, even the little metal type is that high. If I get linoleum and make it up that high, I could do it. I could even rip a piece of cardboard and get those rough edges and put it on a block and make it that high and print it. So there's lots of different ways to make images. And you can do it on the computer. There's ways to make it completely on the computer, make a plate from it, and print it. But I deliberately don't do that, at least right now.
Yeah, I really like that you showed us the process of laying out all the type on the press and just figuring out what works, because I think a lot of people come up with a design first, and then they come to the shop and then try to make it fit, and it doesn't work in a letterpress shop.
Yeah, and also the idea of like having it all designed and figured out, and then just using the press as the way to produce it versus approaching it in a different way because the materials are different, and like making choices kind of real time on the press. I've just found that as a kind of fun challenge, a fun way to work.
So we have a question in the chat from Zaboski. What is a project that you've made that you look back at the most, whether it was impactful as a greater project or just impactful personally?
That's a good question. There is a book I did for grad school. It's part of my thesis in grad school, and I like it so much I've updated it and changed it over the years. And so it was a coloring book, an activity book. It's called the Racial Activity Coloring Book. And so it's got like coloring pages and word search and connect the dots and crossword puzzles and matching games. So all those kind of kid games that you might see like in a kid's restaurant on the kid's table mat. But instead of learning about, you know, the colors and the alphabet and fishes, it was all about race. So the idea was about how do people learn about race? Like how do we know about all these prejudices and all these stereotypes? Like how do we know that you know, Asian people are supposed to be the smart people and Black people are supposed to be the athletes. Like most people's parents aren't explicitly telling them that. I'm sure that happens, but you know, this is something we kind of absorb through the culture, through socialization, through becoming Americans. And so, and I like it because I could talk about race from lots of different ways. So there's a lot of variety in it. And I like to take something that people are familiar with and change the context a little bit. So they see this, oh, this is a coloring book. But as they look deeper, they get a different kind of input. One of my favorite ones was there's a crossword puzzle. It's called the N-word puzzle. And there's a bunch of crossword clues. And the answer is the same 6-letter N-word for all of the answers. So it was a way to kind of talk about that word through lots of different ways. And so I like that piece because I was able to kind of update. I can put current events in there and update it, and it's kind of changed over time. I thought it was a good idea.
Do you have any of those copies available now?
No, I'm working on I sold out of them, and I'm working on revising it, but I haven't yet.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for asking. Are your final projects going to be zines, or are they books, or what's your final projects?
They are zines. They are comic zines that we're working on with another class, and they are in service to a community partner that we have called Beloved Asheville, and they work with a lot of different parts of the community in different ways. And so what we're doing is creating zines that are informative, but also tell stories that they can like pass out. So for instance, they have a team called the Street Medics team that go out with a wagon, a little red wagon with a lot of medical equipment, and they give medical care to people who are homeless and don't have access to medical care in Asheville and surrounding areas. They also have a free farmers market right now for anybody who has trouble with food access. So they set up farmers markets in different neighborhoods around Asheville and just hand out like really good fresh produce and healthy foods. So we're helping them out by making these zines and comics that they can then also hand out as they're out in the community.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, maybe we'll have if I get a few extra copies, I'll send them to you.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see them.
Anybody else? Another question for Ben?
What is your site if we want to maybe go and support you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the first half of that.
I was asking what your site is if we wanted to go and support you.
Oh, yeah. So my site is my name, benblount.com. So you can look at a bunch of my work there. And then I have a store where the stuff I sell is. And so it's kind of a play off my last name. It's bluntobjects.com. Yeah, or you can follow me on Instagram. On Instagram a lot at bluntben, last name, first name. But thanks. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I donate all the money for the Black Lives Matter poster to Black Lives Matter. And then other organizations doing the similar kind of work. And then $5 for the Black Lives Matter shirts also gets donated.
All right, well, I think that was a great way to wrap it up. Thank you, Ben, so much for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. It was nice talking to you. It was fun.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see all of you guys tomorrow night at our big double class meeting. Bye, everyone.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Ben.